In what's being called Orwellian, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer just announced mandatory digital IDs. Take a look.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that.
So in the European Union, for example, they already passed something called eIDAS 2.0, which is a law that basically makes it a requirement for all countries in the European Union to offer a national digital ID wallet by 2026. So in just about a year or two, every single person in Europe will have access to one government-backed app that can log you into your bank and pay your taxes. And it's being sold as kind of a universal login for life in Europe.
These digital IDs where you won't be able to, buy or sell, sounds a lot like what we hear in Revelation 13 when it comes to the mark of the beast. People are wondering, is this like a precursor to that? So let me just read what the Bible actually says about that, and then you can draw the dots together if you think they fit. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. Then the next verse says, "This calls for wisdom." So it does seem like a precursor, right? You cannot work without said digital ID.
The United Kingdom has just announced a nationwide digital ID system, and many inside the country are alarmed. The government says it's about the right to work, but critics warn this is the first step towards a surveillance state or even a surveillance prison.
There's a coordinated global policy push for digital IDs as the new form of government-issued identification credentials. Digital IDs are not really a separate project from CBDCs and this new digital financial system. In UN documentation and also documentation from the Bank of International Settlements, they very overtly state that CBDCs and digital IDs are meant to go together, and without digital IDs, the CBDC digital finance system cannot exist. One of the main reasons for this coordinated global push to develop digital IDs is because it's deemed essential to the entire Sustainable Development Agenda, which is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, also known as Agenda 2030. One of the main words they use to market this stuff is equity and inclusion, the idea that we need to include everybody in these new systems. But if you don't participate in digital ID, you won't have a legally recognized identity, you won't have rights, you won't be able to access services without it. So it's being framed as promoting inclusion, but the system itself is inherently exclusionary and has been used to track and surveil people, to link people to, essentially all their activities, what they say online in some of the countries that have rolled this out, and has been used to facilitate human rights abuses. So it's not exactly as inclusive as they like to claim.
And Britain is not alone in this. Across Europe, the Caribbean, and even Africa, governments are lining up to copy this model.
This government will make a new free of charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
Now, it might sound like it has nothing to do with economics or finance, and maybe it sounds boring, but the truth is, this is one of the most important changes that governments are pushing right now, and it's happening almost everywhere at the exact same time. In the US, at least 25 states have already launched digital driver's license programs. That means you can now pull out your phone instead of your wallet when you check into a flight, for example. And in Europe, they passed a law last year that makes it a requirement for all member countries to roll out a national digital ID wallet by 2026. In China, they just launched their version this summer, which links it to their social credit system. Countries like South Korea, Singapore, Nigeria, the United Arab Emirates are already doing this with their digital IDs. Now, you might have heard of digital IDs before, but I don't think most people really understand what it is because it's not being debated or talked about in Congress. It's not really trending on CNBC, and most people probably don't even realize that this is actually happening. But what's interesting though is that the United Nations has made it one of their goals, quote, legal identity for all by 2030. And the people funding it, of course, the World Economic Forum and the World Bank. And now Europe and the US are writing all of this into law. In just the last decade, the number of national digital ID programs have doubled. Today, over 100 countries either have one or are building one right now.
What would you say if I told you that by the year 2030, you'll own nothing, have no privacy, and yet you'll be happy that you'll live in a cashless society where all currency is digital and that everyone on Earth will require a digital ID to travel freely, and that much like communist China, you'll be given a social credit score that determines how loyal you are to this new global system and those who control it. The end game is a one-world government. To many, this sounds like something straight out of George Orwell's 1984, but I believe an even better guidepost would be the Book of Revelation and the coming Antichrist-led system. Now, some very powerful global players, led by the World Economic Forum and with the enthusiastic backing of some Western leaders, major corporations, and the UN, are openly promoting this radical transformation of society. They call it the Great Reset.
Well, that's the plan, isn't it? Why is everything going online and digital? Why are we becoming a cashless society? We're paying things with contactless cards or with apps on phones. It's to get everything. If you get everything digital and online, it's easily tracked, traced, and databased. It's another way of keeping us all under surveillance and controlled, basically. And these microchips are the ultimate. This is the ultimate goal. And we'll see more about that later on. Here we go.
Stephen Northam runs the UK's first human microchipping company, and of course, he has one fitted.
Our technology is quite simple. It's the same technology used in cats and dogs. All the data stored on the microchip itself only is readable when it's scanned against an external reader.
The implant contains a unique identifier code and uses close-range radio communication, so when you swipe your hand against the reader, it knows it's you.
So currently, the microchips can be used for opening doors, starting cars, so swiping your hand on the steering wheel.
You can start a car with it?
Start your car, yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm interested.
Logging onto laptops, so I can scan my hand, and my laptop logs in.
Look at that.
And future technology for this is contactless payments, passports, whole variety of different technologies could be integrated into the chip.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Get everything digital. So if you had a chip implanted, this is the real danger, isn't it? If you had a chip implanted which had all your bank details on it, so you wouldn't need a card, you could just swipe your hand. It'd have your medical records on it. You could use it for travelling, or like they say, for getting through customs or passport control, things like that. So if that is the future, which clearly this is what this is leading to, what happens if the government of the day, if you don't like what the government's doing and you protest, and they just turn off your chip? Well, you can't travel anywhere, you can't pay for anything, and you can't get medical help, medical assistance. So that's the ultimate, isn't it? The ultimate control, basically, isn't it? If you've got everything on a chip, all your details, all your means of payment, travel, or means of getting medical care is all on a chip. If that gets turned off, what do?
RFID has been cited as a superior and more efficient way of identifying, tracking, monitoring, and managing inventory stock and merchandise items than the barcode systems that have been used since the 1970s. You know, because as we told you, brothers, before, these devils, they have think tanks, you know, and the think tanks that they have are pretty much set up, you know, to come up with ways, you know, on how to trap these people, because their main goal is the New World Order. They want to bring in a New World Order. You have some?
I got some information. This is from Now the End Begins, entitled Human Implantable Microchip. Tracking devices are here to stay. This is dated, August 30th, 2014. It says, watching the creation of the mark of the beast world system. Then it gives you the scripture, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, which is Revelation, the 13th chapter, the 16th verse, and the 17th verse. Then it goes on to say, the Bible talks about the day when all humans on the face of the earth will be forced to either accept or reject the mark of the beast. So according to this site, they're telling you that the mark of the beast is the chip. In that day, it will not be optional. You can refuse to take the mark, yes, but the price you will pay for rejecting it will be instant beheading.
Yep. Or it could be cut off, you know? You'd be put out off the grid, so to speak. It's like I said, it's going to get real after a while. This is Psalms. Go ahead.
More. It says, the Bible calls this time of human history the time of Jacob's trouble, otherwise known as the Great Tribulation.
He heads up this World Economic Forum. They meet yearly in Davos, Switzerland, as you mentioned. But 2030 has been laid out by these great resetters like Klaus Schwab as a pivotal year for their agenda. Why is 2030 such a big deal for them?
Yeah, well, I think Sam could speak a little bit more to this, but my initial thoughts for me is, they've got a plan. But, if you look at everything that's going to happen, with writing on the wall, so to speak, it really points towards that being more so a 10-year plan as opposed to something they could just do right away. One of the things that we've discovered as we've been covering this topic the last 4 or 5 years is these guys are master psyops individuals. Mass psychology, they're masters at figuring out what they have to say, what narrative they have to push, what lever they have to pull to get everybody on board with their ideas.
Right. Digital ID, which you mentioned, Daniel, and digital currency, two concepts that are also very central to the Great Reset agenda. The digital currency, you can see the seeds for that being laid right now. Right. And digital ID as well. Vaccine mandates, I think we're a step in that direction during COVID.
Right.
How far down the line are we towards a digital currency, number one, and perhaps even digital ID?
Yeah, so in regards to CBDC, which stands for Central Bank Digital Currency. So what that is, you may have heard Bitcoin, DeFi, right? Decentralized finance, Bitcoin, Ethereum. These are blockchain technology-backed currency, which in essence could be a good thing. What the government and the central banks are trying to do around the world is harness that technology to then be able to create a centralized form where all transactions, whether it's made online when you go to the store or you go shop on Amazon, could be thoroughly monitored, it could be recorded. So the central banks want to design this, and typically they always seem to have a good reasons as to why. They have a list of good reasons. Hey, here's why this is going to be amazing. It's going to make transactions efficient, it's going to be less costly. We can do cross-border transaction, which actually feeds right into the narrative of eliminating sovereignty borders and making really the world one government. Yeah. But the central bank digital currency, CBDC, the threat of that, it has actually really good ties to the digital IDs because they want to give you money, or they want people who deserve, based on their standards, to have control over their money. So if they don't like what you did or didn't like what you said about them, they can shut your money down or put an expiration date on it and say, hey, your money is only good for the next 30 days, spend it wisely, and just completely shut your account down.
Right. And not only that, but as Sam said, it is control. But I believe the primary reason why they're wanting to roll this out so quickly is to create a global economy, a globalized economy, because that's really the step right before a globalized government.
One of the things, viewers, I just want to play this to you because we're talking about the Bank of England central bank digital currency, right? But listen to this from the IMF. This is where alarm bells ring in my mind. Listen.
If we are to be successful CBDCs could not be fragmented national propositions. To have transactions more efficient and fairer, we need systems that connect countries. In other words, we need interoperability. And for this reason, at the IMF, we are working hard on the concept of a global CBDC platform to trade and to manage risks.
Yeah, so that's the head of the IMF there. Listen to this one as well, my last little clip for you. This is the Bank for International Settlements. Listen.
Cash, we don't know, for example, who's using a $100 bill today. We don't know who is using a 1,000 peso bill today. A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that.
These are huge red flags to me, Ben Habib, because too many people in unelected bodies, in lots of cases, have got a little bit too happy and comfortable with having power. And when I hear all about this, so it's one thing the Bank of England doing this, but that's not enough. The IMF saying it needs to all be globalised. Later on at 7 o'clock, you're going to hear from Nigel Farage. He's going to tell the story about people trying to kick him out of the UK banking system. When all of this is controlled and all digital and it's all programmable, so people will be able to dictate what you can spend, where you can spend it. There's a big piece about digital ID, all kind of embedded within this. This makes me deeply uncomfortable and I reject it.
It's about normalising the idea that the government should have access to every single scrap of information about you. Now, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, shall we? The Online Safety Act. So under the guise of protecting children, which is a noble goal, make no mistake, they're pushing for stringent age verification for websites. By July 2025, if you want to access certain online content, you might need to submit a facial recognition or hand over your photo ID. Well, think about this for a second. So to exercise your right as an adult to access certain legal content, you'll need to prove your age to a faceless system. And where does all of that data go? Who has access to it? And more importantly, what's to stop them from using it for other purposes down the line? This links to your real world identity, to your online activities. And once that genie's out of the bottle, good luck putting it back in. The real danger here is what privacy experts call mission creep. Today, it's age verification. Tomorrow, who knows? Maybe they'll decide that they need to track what news you're reading or opinions you're expressing. After all, it's for your own good, right? These two initiatives, digital driving licenses and online age verification, they're not separate issues. They're two sides of the same coin. Imagine a world where your digital ID is required not just for driving, but for accessing the internet, where every click, every search, every interaction online is tied to your government-issued digital identity.
Because you're anonymous online, it can be worse. I do think over time, with things like deep fakes, most of the time you're online, you're going to want to be in an environment where the people are truly identified. That is, they're connected to a real-world identity that you trust instead of just people saying whatever they want.
This isn't science fiction, folks. That's the direction we're heading in. And we're picking up speed. The government will tell you that it's all voluntary, all about making your life easier. But let's call this what it is. It's a power grab, pure and simple. It's about centralizing control, about knowing everything about everyone all the time. And sure, they'll say, if you've got nothing to hide, then you've got nothing to fear. But that's not really how freedom works, is it? Privacy isn't about hiding wrongdoing. It's about maintaining the basic dignity of having a life that's yours and yours alone.
Russia is testing a state-backed digital ID within Max, a VK super app pre-installed on new phones. You thought the UK was bad. Shit, you thought North Korea was bad. We now have Russia testing state-backed digital ID pre-installed on every phone being sold to people. Users link passports or biometrics to obtain a QR code as official ID, enabling access to payments healthcare, and fines. Wow. And then I saw this from Reclaim the Net when I started searching deeper on it, and they link their story here. Russia pilots state-linked digital ID through Max app, which I gotta be honest, this is scary, but expected out of Russia. But isn't it wild that this is what we're dealing with the free world is battling against this kind of stuff. This is breaking on September 30th, 2025. Russia pilots state-linked digital ID through Max app, a digital passport wrapped in a social feed. Max turns state surveillance into a lifestyle app. Governments around the world are increasingly turning to digital ID systems, which again, before I even go further on this, do you notice the massive worldwide effort together as one pushing for this? And it's got to make you wonder, why is that?
The book of Isaiah, the 10th chapter, beginning at the 20th verse. And basically, because Elder Apostle Ramla mentioned about how 2/3 they're really staying on the so-called white man, staying on his perceived power, but his power is going down. This is the book of Isaiah 10 and 20. It says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob, shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel, in truth." And that's your elect. Now the rest of Israel, they're going to stay upon the so-called white man. So they're going to take that chip.
Point 5. This is an agenda of unprecedented scope and significance. It is accepted by all countries and is applicable to all. Okay, focus on that key point. It is accepted by all countries. It isn't saying, oh, these few countries have accepted it, but some of them haven't. It's saying all countries and is applicable to all human beings on the planet. Okay, so they have made this decision for us. And this is a huge document, by the way. It will take you a while to read through it for those of you interested. Means of implementation. So how will they implement Agenda 2030? Point number 39. The scale and ambition of the new agenda requires a revitalized global partnership to ensure its implementation. Again, we now have these global partnerships that exist, whether that through the UN, and we know all these three-letter organizations, or whether it is through the WEF or GFANZ, which is controlling all the money and the climate money. But again, if we look at a call for action to change our world, they are saying the world will be a better place in 2030 if we succeed in our objectives. But one point I want to bring your attention to, which again, it's bizarre you keep seeing the media attacking this point and saying, oh, all these conspiracy tin hat people talking about human settlement zones. No, this is an actual thing. Look, it is in this document here, Goal 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Now, you might want to look into these human resettlement or human settlement, as they're called them, but they are human resettlement zones, because there is some stuff in here which is, again, a little weird. And as we get to the bottom of the document, point 91, we reaffirm our unwavering commitment to achieving this agenda and utilizing it to the full to transform our world for the better by 2030. Now, I want to take you on to Boris Johnson's speech, which occurred in September of 2019. So let me just play some of the things he said about this Agenda 2030.
In future, there may be nowhere to hide. Smart cities will pullulate with sensors, all joined together by the Internet of Things. But this technology can also be used to keep every citizen under round-the-clock surveillance. A future Alexa will pretend to take orders, but this Alexa will be watching you. In future, voice connectivity will be in every room and almost every object. Your mattress will monitor your nightmares, your smart meter, but in some great cloud of data that lowers ever more oppressively over the human race. Digital authoritarianism is not alas, the stuff of dystopian fantasy, but of an emerging reality.
Screens in every room, monitors in every room. Well, George Orwell in 1948 wrote the book 1984, and that's what all of that was about. Now you see this button that he is wearing here. Now let's go back to this document. Oh, actually they have taken it off here, but if you look here where I'm hovering my mouse, this little button here, can you see that image? I don't think I can get any closer on it, but that is what Boris is wearing.